In the afternoon, of course, there were again crowds, and the volunteers wouldn't believe my mother when she said that Swami's promised to name my baby. But of course, as soon as Swami fed Sai Gita, he started walking towards where my mother was in the crowd. And one day I had this dream early in the morning. It was graphic, where he appeared in this dream and said, "Look, don't use Swami as a crutch." Sai Ram. My first contact with Swami was when I was 2 months old. I'm the youngest of 4 children. My mother had this desire that Swami must name me. And so my father was, of course, very, very upset about it, because he thought it was something impossible to achieve because of the crowds even those days. So my father took leave on a weekend, and my parents with another family friend went to Puttaparthi, Prasanthi, Nilayam on a weekend. And those days, there was this corridor where one could apparently sit if one wanted an interview. And so on day one, nothing happened, and my father was really concerned. And because it'll become a lifelong regret that something that you wanted achieved, or in terms of an aspiration or desire, would go unfulfilled. The next day, my father was sitting there, and Swami motioned to him and said, "Come forward." And my mother went in, and of course, the volunteers didn't allow me to be taken in. And as soon as Swami saw my mother, he looked at her and said, "Korandika namakaranam pannolya." That means you want me to name your son. And he said, I'll do that when I feed Sai Gita later in the afternoon. And in the afternoon, of course, there were again crowds, and the volunteers wouldn't believe my mother when she said that Swami's promised to name my baby. But of course, as soon as Swami fed Sai Gita, he started walking towards where my mother was in the crowd, motioned to her, asked for her to come forward, and then he apparently put his thumb on my forehead and shook his head from side to side and said, "Sai Krishna." And my mother remembered that incident graphically to her dying day. She was critically ill in the ICU, and when doctors were concerned that she may not, her memory may not be intact, I just asked her, "Can you tell me what happened during my naming ceremony?" And she graphically recounted everything, and I knew she was clearly there. For me, Swami has been an integral part of my personal and professional life. When I started off life as a lawyer, I had the option of either coming to Delhi or Bangalore or Chennai, and I was in this massive quandary, and I thought I'll get Swami to make this decision for me. So I would go to Whitefield. I was engaged to my wife Aparna at that point of time, and our dates were really going to Whitefield or Puttaparthi. We would set off in this bus or the train and get there. I went there on multiple occasions, but nothing really happened. And I became desperate for that guidance from Swami. And one day I had this dream early in the morning. It was graphic, where he appeared in this dream and said, "Look, don't use Swami as a crutch. You take your call, you take your decision, and Swami will back you. Don't rely on me as a crutch." And that was it. I decided I would come to Delhi, and Swami, true to his word, backed me through and through. And I am whatever I am entirely because of Swami, because I make every attempt to live my life according to his message. Sai Ram.
Om Shri Sai Ram. I got introduced into the world of Sai through my husband, Sai Krishna, whom I met in college. And once I got introduced to him, he would tell me so many stories about Baba. And it was not the actual miracles that moved me more. What moved me was the spirit of service. I've always been extremely inspired whenever I would go to Puttaparthi or Whitefield with him. What I would look at were the colleges and the medical facilities and all the spirit of seva that the Seva Dal volunteers would happily come and do. that would really inspire me. So in life, I trained to be a lawyer, but after we got married, I came to Delhi, worked a bit, and I realized that my heart lies in doing many other things, which is not what do you call, related to law. So once a couple of years after working a couple of years, I decided I'm going to do a lot of other things that I always wished to do. I love animals and I love nature a lot. And in fact, I think one of it was Sathya ji's talks that I can actually encapsulate what I feel about the work I do. Apparently, he was in a car and he kept asking Swami, saying, "Can you show me Vishwarupam?" And this is what I remember of his speech actually. And Swami kept ignoring him, and then after a point Swami looked at him and said, "Put the window down," and he said, "This is Vishwarupam," and he showed me the world outside. So I've taken that as my mantra for my work. I think we should be able to see God in everything that we do. That is God. We are looking for God as a person or a entity, but I think God is in the work that we do or the world that we see around us. And so we have an animal sanctuary and a natural farm, and in the natural farm we grow about 200 crops, and we have a lot of people living there, and we have a lot of animals, and we work with the animals and the people and the villages, and through that we've learnt a lot. Sai and I've had a lot of lovely experiences. We've been able to connect with people we would otherwise never have been able to connect with. And in this work, I've also realized that just reaching out to people or extending a little of our services goes a long way, and we don't realize how much we can impact our little small world around us. So we don't have to go very far. हमें बहुत दूर नहीं जाना है. अपने ही माहौल में, अपने ही चारों तरफ अगर हमने थोड़ा सा अपना वक्त, समय, पैसा जो भी है, जो जितना हम कर सकते हैं, अगर हम करें तो इसका बहुत बड़ा इम्पैक्ट होता है लाइफ किसी और के ज़िंदगी में, अपने ज़िंदगी में. हम भी उसमें सीखते हैं और दूसरे को भी इसमें वी डोंट रियलाइज़ कि कितना एक थोड़ा सा पुश किसी और को चाहिए, चाहे वो इंसान हो या जानवर हो या प्रकृति हो. तो इसी में हम जुड़े हुए हैं. मिट्टी सुधार, जैविक खेती एंड गांव सेवा, तो यही हम कर रहे हैं. हमारा फार्म का नाम बीजोम है, एंड इस फार्म के द्वारा हम थोड़ा बहुत स्वामी का टीचिंग्स को अपना के कर पा रहे हैं, और यही मेरा सबसे बड़ा सीख है. एक्चुअली मैंने स्वामी से पर्सनली कभी मिला नहीं है, मुझे वो मौका नहीं मिला, जबकि मैंने उनका दर्शन बहुत किया है. बट रोज़ मैंने ये देखा है, कई आप मिरेकल्स बोल सकते हैं हमारे फार्म में. हम कुछ सोचते हैं करने के लिए, फिर हम सोचते हैं कैसे ये होगा, और हो जाता है कैसे भी. अगर हम प्रयास करें और अपना कुछ शुरू करें तो वो कैसे भी, आई थिंक भगवान हमें आगे निकल के ले जाते हैं. तो इम्पॉर्टेंट थिंग इज़ टू स्टार्ट एंड ऑलवेज डू. एंड सो वी वेरी ग्रेटफुल फॉर आवर ओन अपॉर्चुनिटीज़ ऑफ जो भी हम कर रहे हैं, एंड इसकी वजह से हमें यही स्पिरिचुअलिटी है मेरे अंदाजे से. थैंक यू.